your attention here. It's intended to. Would you be interested to hear about a get-rich-quick scheme? It works and it's easy money. Furthermore, you can be powerful, self-confident, and enjoy all the luxuries of this world. I'm sure you're thinking it's too good to be true, but it has been tried and tested over centuries. You know what it is? Violent crime. Now, maybe most of us wouldn't go this far to get these things or to become these things. But we are tempted. The very fact that we're interested as to what this was will show that there's a certain temptation within us, a certain desire within us that identifies with this. And the book of Proverbs deals with it in the very first chapter, because it seems that the young people in ancient time were given this option by the criminals and encouraged by the criminals to join forces with them. So the father is warning the son, and he says in Proverbs chapter 1 verse 10, "My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, 'Come with us, let us lie in wait for blood, let us ambush the innocent without cause, let us swallow them alive like shoal, even whole as those who go down to the pit, we shall find all kinds of precious wealth. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Throw in your lot with us. We shall all have one purse.'" He says, "My son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your feet far from their path." And what good advice that is. At the same time, how tempting this must be for a younger person who wants to get rich, who wants to get rich easy, who wants to get rich quickly, who wants to have all the benefits of the luxuries of this life. Violence is endemic in our society now. In the schools, we've got a real problem with bullying. Maybe your child was bullied somewhere along the line, so you know a little bit about it. And that's older, more powerful, mostly young fellas, who are ready to push around all the little ones to start a reign of terror so that they can get their lunch money or get them to run errands for him or whatever else is behind it. It's a power play. And it can destroy the lives of young children. There are groups of youths on Friday, Saturday, Sunday night roaming the streets, just looking for somebody to pick on and to kick the guts out of them. And they violently light on these young people, probably innocent bypassers, and they a lot of the times end up in hospital because they've been beaten so badly. What is the joy in such violence? Where's all the anger coming from? Why are people disposed to do this sort of thing? We know that the media is feeding us with this, and people are loving it. Even Christians are loving it. have been to the people they have killed. He tortures the people who have tortured other people. And to some extent, the evil justifies the good result that these bad people are taking out of society. And the person who's perpetrating it, even though he's acting out of the law, even though he's killing and maiming others, seems to be a hero in our sight. Devil's very clever. Most of the video games that attract attention are violent, grossly violent. They're war situations, and you are involved in it, killing off people, bringing them down, and thinking nothing of it. The mind is very peculiar. These images and thoughts are fed into the subconscious. The devil knows this. They're fed into the subconscious, and we are being conditioned, brethren. We are being conditioned. And if it's violence you want, you will get the violence that you want. If it's a violent society that you're looking for, if that's what turns you on, then you're going to get it. Make no mistake. It's coming. It's probably already here. So we need to look at this whole question of violence and of violent crimes and ask ourselves, how right is it? And how can I support it in any way, shape, or form? We're told that husbands should love their wives as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. He who loves his wife loves himself. And yet, throughout the length and breadth of this land, there are situations such as the following. A woman with her 4 children and the husband gets up on Sunday morning and everything's fine, everybody's happy, breakfast goes well, children are all playing around. The husband says, well, I'm going off for a while. Probably says, I'm going to Mass, and off he goes. She makes a lovely dinner, but the husband doesn't turn up. Her and the kids have the dinner. It's 4 or 5 o'clock before he turns up. The dinner's been in the oven. So she says to him, annoyed of course, because the kids wanted to go out that afternoon. And she had planned to take them out, and hopefully take the whole family out. All together, lovely family idea, lovely scene, but it didn't happen. And she was annoyed. Where have you been all afternoon? Who are you to talk to me like that with such disrespect? She knew exactly where he was, if he had ever gone to Mass. Your dinner's ready. Where's my dinner? Sit down there at the table, I'll give it to you. So she pulls it out of the oven and sets it before her. Well, of course, the meat's dried up. The mashed potatoes are now hard potatoes. And he looks at this. Oh, what's this slop on the table? You wouldn't even give it to a pig. Don't talk to me like that. I've been here all morning slaving, looking after your kids. I've been cooking meals, waiting for you to come in, and you talk to me like that. Don't you talk to me like that! And he takes the plate up and he smashes it on the ground. And he takes her by the skirt and he gives her a punch in the face. And the kids are looking at this and she's screaming, the blood spurting out of her nose, and they're screaming. And he says, get out of here, go up that stairs, get up there that way. And then he goes for her again and he knocks her to the ground. And she falls flat on her face. And he stands on her fingers and breaks 2 of her fingers. And she's screaming in pain. The kids are halfway up the stairs and he comes for them. He chases them up the stairs. And there they are, screaming, go into the room, close the door. He goes into the door and he opens that door. And he starts to, the oldest him against the wall and knocks him out. The other boy he catches by the arm and he swings him over onto the bed, dislocating his shoulder. The little one is screaming with her head under the clothes. And then he calms down, goes out the front door, and is not seen again until the next day. Violence. Violence in the home. It's happening, brethren. It's happening up and down this country. And there are families who are plagued by it. Do you think that's funny? Do you think that's right? Do you think you'd never do it to your wife or your kids? How does a woman cope under these circumstances? Well, let's go to 1 Peter chapter 3 for a start. It talks about the wife's position as the one who's submissive. And it says, using Sarah as an example in verse 6, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, and you have become her children if you do what is right, without being frightened by any fear. Without being frightened by any fear. That's a very difficult thing, given the circumstances that we're talking about. Sarah had a husband who was a good man, who wanted to serve God, who treated her with respect, who listened to her when she had complaints, who tried to make a happy home. It's without fear for her. What about everybody else? He says, you husbands likewise live with your wives in an understanding way as with a weaker vessel. She's weaker physically. Meant to be as well, because she is a delicate vessel, made for beauty rather than for strength. But the husband is to have that in his mind and consider that, since she is a woman, he's to grant her honour as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. How is it possible to live without fear under these circumstances? If you're a Christian woman, the one thing that you have that other women won't have is that faith in God, which has a mechanism in it for dealing with violent situations. And the mechanism is that you trust God. In this trust in God, you are well within your means to use whatever is lawful to protect yourself and your children. Taking out a knife and stabbing your drunken husband is not lawful, and is not a way of expressing your faith and trust in God. It just isn't. You have to try and find whatever lawful means that are to protect yourself and your children. But you need to trust God while you're looking for these means. In 2 Samuel 22, says, David spoke the words of this song to the Lord in the day that the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. For years, Saul had chased David as one who was an enemy of the state, as one who was a leader of a motley crew who were hell-bent on gaining power from Saul, who was the legitimate king, or so Saul thought. But David knew better, and he was the victim, not Saul. Saul was the perpetrator of the violence. And during this period, there were many times that David's life was threatened, many times. But hear what he has to say between verses 2 and 4. He said, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge. My Saviour, you save me from violence. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies." Now, in case you think that the situation that David was in was different, which it was, to this woman that we were describing, I want to tell you that any situation in which we're threatened by violence has the same effect emotionally, physically, mentally, and psychologically on us. It just does. So if we can see how one copes in one area of violence, we can see how we can cope in another area of violence. And David saw God as the living God. He believed that God saw everything that Saul was doing and what he was threatening to do. He could hear everything, every plan that was made to destroy David. And he put his trust in God, who knew all things and who was all-powerful enough to protect him, to do just that. God for David was his rock, his shield, his salvation, his stronghold, his refuge, and he did save him from violence. His life wasn't easy. It was painfully difficult. He was depressed at times. He was living in the cave of Adullam, and living like some sort of rat, where you're in that darkness, and you're isolated from your families, you're isolated from your fellow citizens, you're isolated from the life of the towns and the cities. You're just relying on God. There's nobody else to rely on. He had other people with him, and then it became a problem for him because he had to make sure that they got fed and they got looked after as well. So things were as difficult. And constantly the threat of being discovered and being killed was present with him all the time. So he's saying, you have to trust in God. And anybody in these situations has to trust in God. I say trust in God, and then if you're finding that you can't cope, you have to look for mechanisms, lawful mechanisms by which you can protect yourself and your family. There's, of course, we can talk about all sorts of violence. There's violence against all people. In homes, nursing homes they call them. In nursing homes, there have been terrible breaches of trust, and people have actually been violent towards the elderly. I saw some clips of one home in England where they were torturing. They were absolutely torturing them. It was terrible. It was unbelievable that we humans can go so low as to take advantage of other humans who are so incapacitated and so helpless. And yet, it's within us. Don't ever say, I could never do that. too much of a conscience, too much love for people to ever do a thing like that. But circumstances change, and we change, and things can get difficult. And then, who knows, with bad influence and bad company, what you can get up to, or what you can turn a blind eye to. There's that sort of violence going on. And there's other types of violence that we can mention, but we'll leave mentioning it right now, that's going on in our society. But society starts to break down, brethren, and we're in the course of it, because first of all, the morals of the people go out the window. There's no moral ethic in the community anymore, and there isn't anymore. Everybody seems to want to eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That's the philosophy that we have here. And they don't mind being immoral with anybody they like to be immoral, as long as they're drunk enough or they're high enough. It doesn't matter who they're immoral with or how disgracefully they're behaving. We can see them coming out of the clubs at 1 or 2 in the morning, 3 or 4 in the morning, falling all over the place, drunk out of their minds. Girls with half-clad in the garments that they're wearing, just a handkerchief and 2 face wipes covering their body, and it's just incredible. I just can't believe that the girls could get themselves into that position and not realise how vulnerable they are with men who go to these places and are full of lust and are eyeing for others for the purpose of just taking advantage of them. And these men groping and doing what they will to these girls and couldn't care less about them. They're objects to be despised and used and abused and dumped. It's very bad scene. But you see, once these morals start breaking down, the violence starts to come in. Now, if there is some restraint from the top, from the government, then the chances are that the brakes are on. There's some restraint there. But if it starts to break down at that level, the foundations are destroyed. The foundations are destroyed, and the society starts to practice violence more, and some people come to love violence. Let's look at Psalm chapter 11. In this psalm, we see David saying, "In the Lord I take refuge." That's the first statement. But it seems like his advisors were saying to him, "Look, you need to flee like a bird to the mountain." As verse 1 says, "How can you say to me, or how can you say to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain? For behold, the wicked bend the bow, they make ready their arrow upon the string, to shoot in darkness and be upright in heart. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do?" And then he proclaims, "The Lord is in his holy temple." All his advisors could say, "Get out, save yourself from this trouble. Make sure that your life is not being threatened." But David says, "Look, hold on. I'm not taking this advice at this time. The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold the eyelids, test the sons of men. The Lord tests the righteous and the wicked, and the one who loves violence his soul hates. Upon the wicked he will rain snares, fire and brimstone, and burning wind will be the portion of their cup. For the Lord is righteous, and he loves righteousness, and the upright will behold his face." See, it does matter what you are. And if the circumstances that we're in change us so that we're adjusting ourselves to cope with these circumstances, I fight fire with fire. I fight menacing threats with menacing threats. I fight vulgarity with vulgarity. I fight physical violence with physical violence. There's a lot of women now being accused of physical violence. If they see their husband is any way weak at all, they play the dominant role. They beat him with the pan over the head. They threaten him. It's a whole situation that we need to realize. Once I'm in this situation, the temptation is to do evil, to overcome the evil with evil. The Lord loves the righteous. That's what David says. So in these circumstances, I've still got to do what is right. But that's stupid, Steve. That's stupid. You can't say things like that. That just leaves you so exposed, so vulnerable. I know it sounds stupid. And I know it's a hard thing to say to somebody who's really suffering. But it's the thing that David said. It's the thing that the Lord is saying. And it's said to build your faith up, not to tear your faith down. The Lord loves the righteous, and the upright will behold his face. The early Christians were willing to be murdered rather than to murder somebody else. The early Christians were prepared to suffer violence rather than be violent towards somebody else. They had got the message. It's Christians in this generation that I'm worried about. I don't know that we've got the message. There's like that abortion referendum. When the X case came up, everybody in Ireland had voted no abortion in Ireland. And suddenly the X case brought it home to them. Might be my daughter. And you know what I heard them saying at the time? If it was my daughter, I'd take her to England. See, it's all right when we're talking about generalizations. And it's all right when it's somebody else's life, and I know the principles that are right, but when it comes to me and my own, then the principles go out the window. Then I'll do what's necessary in terms of flesh. So you see, we change when we think it's going to affect us in a bad way. We can't change, Brethren. We haven't got that right. We have to be consistent. We have to be Christians under these circumstances. Just as Christians, as Christians always have had to be Christians under those circumstances. It's when violence comes from the top and then is promoted by the people who are governing that causes a major problem. In 2 Kings 22, actually 21, let's look at 21. Manasseh is spoken about. And it says in verse 2, he did evil in the sight of the Lord according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord dispossessed before the sons of Israel. In other words, he had reverted back in moral terms to what the Canaanite nations were when Joshua came into Canaan and drove these people out and annihilated them. That's how bad it got with idolatry, immorality, and violence as well. He was able to let his sons pass through the fire. In verse 6, he made his son pass through the fire, practiced witchcraft, used divination, dealt with mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger. verse 16 says, moreover, Manasseh shed very much innocent blood until he had filled Jerusalem from one end to the other, besides his sin with which he made Judah sin in doing evil in the sight of the Lord. The violence follows on. That's the point. Now look at Hosea chapter 4. It says, listen to the word of the Lord, O sons of Israel, for the Lord has a case against the inhabitants of the land, because there is no faithfulness or kindness or knowledge of God in the land. Verse 2 says, there is swearing, deception, murder, stealing, and adultery. They employ violence so that bloodshed follows bloodshed. Therefore the land mourns, and everyone who lives in it languishes, along with the beasts of the field and the birds of the sky, and also the fish of the sea disappear, it says. So bad is the violence. So bad is the lack of consideration for nature, for other people, for God, for what is right. So lacking is it in that community that it's just got to the point where everybody sees what they want, grabs it violently, and leaves the people like the robbers who saw that man going from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, and they left him half dead. Nearly killed him to rob him. It is got so bad in Hosea's time that in chapter 6, he says in verses 8 and 9, Gilead is a city of wrongdoers, tracked with bloody footprints. It's a very, very picturesque statement. You can see after the violence, the blood all over the place, on their feet and on their shoes, and as they walked away, the footprints that were left were full of blood, bloody footprints. As raiders wait for a man, so a band of priests murder on the way to Shechem. The people who are supposed to be the ones leading the community in moral standards and righteous living, these are the very ones murdering on the way to Shechem, no doubt to go to worship at their idolatrous shrine. That's how far down we've got to go. It's coming. It's just a matter of time. It's coming. Our society is moving there fast. How did the godly cope in these circumstances? And let's look at Isaiah chapter 8. Isaiah's time. I was looking in Jeremiah, I was looking verse 12. Okay, thanks, Lord. He tells them that all of the to-do that's going on here, all right, you mustn't get carried away with it. That if you have faith in God, you must say God is going to look after it. He says in verse 12, you are not to say it is a conspiracy in regard to all that this people call a conspiracy. And you are not to fear what they fear or be in dread of it. It is the Lord of hosts whom you shall regard as holy. And he shall be your fear, and he shall be your dread. That's the advice that's given here by Isaiah. In chapter 30 it talks about repentance and quietness and a reserve there that only comes from a confidence in God and in God's ability to look after us in the crisis, in the difficulty. Whether it's financial crisis, whether it's violence, whatever it is that we're going to have to face, he can look after us and will look after us and deliver us from the evil. It is, as has been said already, a matter of us having the sort of faith that will take us through these times. But if this is the green tree and we're doing the wrong in the green tree, what will we do in the dry? If these are the good times, what will we do in the evil times? If we can't even live up to our faith in the good times. Do you think you have a chance in the bad times? So we've got to get it right now. We've got to start working on this. And we've got to get it right. If we don't get it right, we won't be capable of turning to God in the way we should when things are totally out of control and only God can save us. So that's what we need to do. Now, I will say this. Things can change for the better. They can change for the better when there is repentance. And even the most violent person can be forgiven. Manasseh was forgiven of all his sins. Even though he had filled Jerusalem with blood, even though he had taken Israel back to the idolatrous immoral days of the Canaanites, even though he had made lives terribly miserable for years, yet when he repented in captivity, we're told that God accepted his repentance and restored him to his position. In 2 Chronicles chapter 33, beginning with verse 10, the Lord spoke to Manasseh and his people, but they paid no attention. Of course, he spoke to them through the prophets, the preachers who were teaching the truth and telling him what the Lord wanted. But they weren't paying any attention. Therefore the Lord brought the commanders of the army of the king of Assyria against them, and they captured Manasseh with hooks, bound him with bronze chains, and took him to Babylon. When he was in distress, he entreated the Lord his God and humbled himself greatly before the God of his fathers. When he prayed to him, he was moved by his entreaty and heard his supplication and brought him again to Jerusalem to his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that the Lord was God. He removed foreign gods. He did all the things that were necessary to demonstrate that he had repented of his wickedness and his folly. And the Lord accepted him. Isn't that absolutely wonderful? And that whole principle there of the Lord's forgiveness, when the law came in, transgressions increased, told in Romans 5 verse 20. But where transgressions increased, grace abounded all the more. There is nothing that God cannot forgive. There is nobody too sinful that God will reject. Everybody is welcome before him. Jesus has died for all men. All men can be saved. All men can be forgiven. All men can start out on the right road again. All men, potentially, all men can be saved in heaven for all eternity. over. For those that don't want to, they don't even know there's a door, let alone know that it's over. Which is very sad. But I say again at the end of this lesson, we need to learn that violence will become greater and will become more vicious, and that our society is moving towards this. The Old Testament shows us how bad things can become. In the time of the flood, the earth was filled with violence. Filled with it. Can you imagine what that was like to live at those times? No wonder God wanted to clean it all up and start all over again. Because there comes a point where God says, enough is enough. But for the most part, it's well after you've said, enough is enough. So you need to trust him. But be on your guard, brethren. If you're not violent, well, that's great. That's wonderful. But don't take joy in murder and mayhem on your television screens or on the movie screens. Don't think that this is entertainment. Murder is not entertainment in any way, shape, or form. Violence is not entertainment in any way, shape, or form. And we should prevent ourselves from learning to love it through the experience of entertainment.